Hello everybody, welcome to Canadian Immigration Channel. In this quick video I would like to give you a quick outlook or overview, if you will, of immigration programs from least to most expensive ones. Of course it's a very quick one, but I think this video might be helpful for those of you who are comparing different immigration opportunities or options which you might have on your table. Now everything would start from application for immigration where you have employer support. So for example, you're applying through express entry, but you have an employer supporting you, and this might be giving you 50 points, this might be giving you 200 points, doesn't really matter. With employer support you are exempt from settlement funds requirements, so you don't have to show money in your pocket. All of your expenses would pretty much be federal fees, medical examination, it would be a WS assessment if you're going through educational credentials assessment this or that way, but all in all that would be the cheapest option. The next one you would be looking for is a federal skilled worker program with direct application through express entry system, where you would be paying pretty much the same amount of money, but you would have, in this case, have to show additional funds. You would have to show that you got enough funds in your pocket to settle yourself in Canada, and probably if, say, you do not have employer support, if you do not have those additional points, you would probably spend a little bit more on your language test preparation, maybe on taking the exam by itself. So that's why I would probably consider this program a little bit more expensive. Third one would be immigration with provincial supports. So say if you have your application in express entry system, you do not have enough points, you're looking for support from one of the provinces, Saskatchewan, Ontario, New Brunswick, you name it, and you would have to pay extra for preparing your documents, you would have to pay extra for provincial fees, you would have to pay a little bit extra for maybe sending documents via registered post to provincial authorities. For example, New Brunswick would ask you to issue additional certificate from WS and send directly to them. New Brunswick would ask you for the hard copies of documents. Saskatchewan might ask you for additional documents, etc., etc. Ontario, for example, would ask you for $1,500 of processing fees, so that adds up on top of the previous one. So that goes on top of that application through a federal skilled worker program with express entry. Next one would be business immigration, and by business immigration I specifically mean entrepreneurs. So if you're applying as an entrepreneur, you would have to prepare a business plan, you might incur additional costs for traveling to Canada, you might have to have more money in your pockets. Usually everything would start from something close to 350,000 Canadian dollars, but again, that's not money you're spending, that's money which are in your pocket. Some of the provinces would require you also have an escrow, meaning that after your approval on provincial level, they would ask you to deposit, securely deposit to them, to the province, X amount of money, which usually varies from 75 to 125,000 Canadian dollars, which would be refundable provided that you come to the province and open the business as you've promised. But this option is not as expensive as it actually might sound, provided that you meet all of the requirements, provided that you're planning to open the business in the future. All in all, you might be looking at something between 10 to 15,000 Canadian dollars for all of the expenses, which is not too much considering the amount of work to be done. Next one would probably be investor program. Again, it depends. We're talking about Quebec investor. It will depend on how you would be and which funds you would be using. Because in Quebec program, there are two opportunities. You might actually invest your money directly. So say you're giving money to the government for 5 years, or you may actually buy this investment. So I have this money, but I'm not looking to invest them myself. I would ask Canadian Bank to do it on behalf of me, and in that case it might be a little bit more expensive. So in the first case, when you're not spending anything, where you're just giving your money securely to the government and expecting them everything out, everything back after 5 years, well, this program all in all might actually cost you pretty much the same, 10, 15, maybe $16,000 for preparing the documents correctly and doing everything fine. If on the other hand you're asking for banking support, so they will be paying their own money, you might end up paying something close to 150,000 Canadian dollars, which is rather on the expensive side. Third one would probably be an opening business in Canada. So remember, we spoke before, an option where you're coming into Canada, you purchase a business or you open a business by yourself. Now, this option not necessarily would be an expensive one, depending on the business which you are planning to open. If, say, it's an IT startup, you might end up needing just a used computer or a used laptop, right, and a place to sit, which will end up like spending a few $1,000s, plus preparing the documents, plus this and this, all in all, close to, again, 10, 15,000 Canadian dollars. If we're talking about manufacturing business, if we're talking about opening something more serious, that might actually be more expensive, so up to 50, 60, 70,000 Canadian dollars, depends on what kind of equipment, machinery you might be needed. And last but not least, probably the most expensive immigration option, however surprising it might be, is immigration through studies. Immigration through studies would be most expensive ones because you are spending money on going to a college or a university. So say if you're going for MBA, you might end up spending something close to $70,000, $80,000 if we're going to the most prestigious ones. If we're going for master's program, it could be something close to 30,000, 40,000 Canadian dollars for a couple of years. Might actually be more again, right? Even if it's a simple college somewhere in Toronto, a 2-year program would cost you not necessarily an arm and a leg, but that's close to 30,000 Canadian dollars plus living expenses. So all in all, I don't want to say you're throwing away 50,000 Canadian dollars, but you might actually end up paying far, far less if you immigrate by yourself, if you prepare and do your job diligently from back home, if you prepare for language tests correctly, etc., etc. So I'm not saying going here for study is a bad idea. I just want you to compare again apples versus apples and make sure that you make that right decision. If you want to consult privately, if you want to discuss your particular case, how to come, which option to consider, well, feel free to drop us a line, stay tuned with us, and of course subscribe for the channel.